J.D. Marshall is a pretty unique story, not just because of the details of the shipwreck, but it's pretty unique for us at the Indiana Dunes State Park because it is our shipwreck. It is the one just offshore our beach that we have here, and so it's a common story that we're going to tell at the Indiana Dunes State Park. But we're going back to 100 years now, just last year, on the night of June 10th, 1911, into the early mornings of June 11th, 1911, that this shipwreck occurred. So we had Captain Rand, we had Donahue, and we had the other 8 members of the crew that were then sailing and moving back west towards Chicago. We're doing this on the night of June 10th, 1911. And as they get about halfway there, roughly around the area here in front of the Indiana Dunes State Park, at the time it was the old town of City West is what it was called, short for Michigan City West. But the old town had been right here on our beach where the pavilion is today, and they decided to throw anchor because a leak sprung in the J.D. Marshall. And so we have cold water coming into the ship, we have a crew down below that are patching it up, and we decided to throw anchor and spend the evening hours offshore of City West. And it was during that time that as the crew was getting some rest, they had patched the leak. Something occurred that night. And we have a term for this that occurs just on Lake Michigan and on the other Great Lakes. And it's kind of you're looking up in the sky, it's clear skies, you see the stars, and then just out of nowhere, winds come in, lightning, thunder, rain is coming down, and we call it a squall. And the squall just kind of comes up out of nowhere, and it starts blowing the J.D. Marshall around. And here we have a ship that's rocking with a full load of, we got sand, we got all raw, kind of unrefined steel we call pig iron. We have all this in the ship. And as the winds are blowing, these waves are reported to be getting 20 feet high. The waves are crashing over the deck of the ship, and we have a couple things that can happen to a ship in this situation. And what happened was, as the ship flips over, it can oftentimes just kind of fall apart. As it falls apart, it goes down to the bottom of the lake. The J.D. Marshall actually stayed completely intact. She flipped all the way over, and then the whole ship came down, upside down, down to the bottom. And we call that turn turtle. And so the J.D. Marshall, at about 1:45 a.m., she turned turtle in this storm. While the storm is rocking the ship back and forth, you can imagine what happened down below deck. The leak sprung. And so now we actually have crew down below deck during this whole time while the ship's going back and forth. Then she turns turtle and goes straight to the bottom of the lake. And at that time, everyone that's on top of the deck got thrown off into the lake, except for 3 people who were down below working on that leak. And during this, all this different material and parts of the ship get thrown off of the deck, and Captain Rand is thrown off the ship as well. And we're about a half to 1 mile offshore. And so during this time, Captain Rand actually swims all the way back to shore, commandeers a rowboat, and goes back out into the lake. And he's out there in that storm, and he's looking for his crew. But you can imagine who he's really looking for. The one person he wants to find is his son to him. It's that first mate Donahue. So he's looking for them. They eventually find a lot of the crew. They're out there just grabbing hold of wood and debris that's out there in the water, and they're able to recover a lot of them. It would be several hours later they finally did find Donahue. And this is the reason that we know the shipwreck occurred at 1:45 a.m. is because he was tossed off, basically in his cork vest jacket, life preservers of that time, and his head hit some of the debris as he hit the water. And it's believed that he was killed instantly. But one thing that he was wearing was his watch. And the watches of that era, they weren't waterproof, and it stopped at 1:45 a.m. And so here we find Donahue floating in the water. They're able to recover his body and eventually the other 3 bodies too. And so here in one night we had one of the largest maritime disasters in Indiana waters. We have shipwrecks throughout the Great Lakes that have caused higher loss of lives. When we ask people to name a shipwreck, Edmund Fitzgerald is always the first one to be named, and here we had more lives lost there. But for Indiana waters, the little sliver that we got, it is one of our largest maritime disasters that we have.